Today we're going to be building some new wedges for George Bryan, but I'm not going to be using all my usual club building tools. Today in this video we're going to be building these clubs just using basic stuff from Home Depot. Let's go. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a wonderful day. So this video is really just showing you that you don't need a lot of, elaborate tools and supplies in order to build golf clubs. We're going to do it today. We're going to be building the actual golf clubs that I'm going to be sending to George that he is presumably going to use, but we're going to be doing it with just basic Home Depot supplies. Now, I've already cleared all this with George. He knows what I'm doing and he okayed it, so we're good there. But if we do have to make any sort of adjustments to the loft and lie, I will be using my much more elaborate and golf-specific loft lie machine. I don't think Home Depot has anything that is sort of equivalent. I guess in theory you could maybe build something from Home Depot supplies, but that's way above my pay grade. Okay, first thing we're going to do, I've got some 120 grit sandpaper, excuse me. We're going to cut let's call it about 2 inches wide, and these have already been pre-cut, so they're about 3 inches long or so. And then we're just going to take this and just kind of roll it into a little dowel kind of shape. Just like this. And now we're going to take this and I'm just going to run this around inside the hosel of each of these wedges just to try and make sure there's nothing kind of sticking out in them. Just like that. Just like that. Perfect. Okay, next thing, we're going to take these shafts, and I'm going to be tipping each of these 1/2 inch in order to flex a little bit more appropriately in these heavier wedge heads. So we're going to be cutting a 1/2 inch off of each of these shafts. Okay, in order to cut the graphite shaft, I've got some masking tape that I bought at, you guessed it, Home Depot. We're going to pull off a little piece here for each of these 3 shafts. And when we're cutting through graphite, through the carbon fiber shafts, it's always helpful to have a little bit of masking tape wrapped around the cutting area. Both because, one, it can be hard to sort of see where you put a marker line on a black shaft like this, but also because this tape can help reduce the chance of just getting any sort of splinters forming when we're cutting it with a hacksaw. So because of that, we just wrap a little bit of tape right around where we're going to cut it. 1/2 inch from the tip of the shaft, which will be right there. Now we've also got a vise here, which again, from Home Depot actually. I didn't buy a new one, I already had this one, but it's the same one you see here. Now you can also get, and they didn't have it in store, but you can get it on the website, vise pads, sort of plasticky or rubbery vise pads that are actually perfect for holding a golf shaft. Again, I couldn't find one in my local store, so we'll just use my little vise clamp here that I already have. We'll tighten this down. Remember, this is a carbon fiber shaft, so do not squeeze it, do not tighten it too much because that can lead to breaks. And now we want to just make sure this is nice and level. Hacksaw, once again, from Home Depot. Hacksaw blades, when we're cutting through graphite shafts, we want something with a lot of TPI, a lot of teeth per inch. 32 is usually about as much as you're going to be able to find, and that should be perfect. The more teeth we have, the less likely you're going to have any sort of splinters or fraying at the end of the shaft. So that's what we want to use here. And now we're just going to cut right through this mark that we put on the tape. We just want to go nice and steady, back and forth. Just use the weight of the saw to kind of bring it down. Don't push down on it. Just let the weight, just let gravity sort of pull the saw down onto the fibers. Just like that. Next step, we're going to remove the paint from the tip of the shaft that's going to fit down inside the hosel. Just going to use this. This is going to be sort of our buffer at the end. So we're going to put this on the end of the shaft, just about just about 1/4 of an inch sticking out, or 1/4 of an inch past where the hosel ends. So just a little bit extra here. And what we're doing with that is really just, we want to get a little of this sanded also to give the ferrule something to adhere to a little bit better. So this is the area that we're now going to remove the paint with. Now we could obviously do this with sandpaper and use sort of a shoe shine method, or even just sort of just kind of a brushing type method like this to remove the paint. That will definitely work. If you want another method, and I've shown you this one before also, we take a utility knife, we take the blade, pointing it not quite 90 degrees, slightly more with the blade pointed towards me, but then scraping away. And we're just going to run that around the entire shaft. And this will then just sort of scrape off that paint and give us a nice part of the shaft like that we can now get the epoxy to adhere to. So we'll just make sure we get it all the way up to that tape, just like that. Main thing here, if you're going to use this method, never have the blade pointing in the same direction as how you're scraping, because this you can cut right into these graphite fibers and ruin the shaft. So always have the blade pointing in the opposite direction of how you're moving the blade. So I always like to go away, so the blade points towards me, goes away. Let's measure these for length so we can cut them. All we're going to use here, just a standard 48-inch ruler. This one I have attached a gate strap hinge, I think is what it's called, to the end of it so that I could use it when I had it laying on a bench. But you don't need that. You can just use the 48-inch ruler just as you would buy it at the store. All we're going to do here, we're going to take the club, we're going to put the head onto the shaft. This is the 54 degree. And then we're just going to lay it on the ground carefully, because this head is not attached and we don't want it to fall off. And we're just going to lay it on the ground just like this. And then from here, we want it just resting in its kind of normal playing position. Then we're just going to slide the 48-inch ruler up underneath the back of it, just like this. And just kind of get it resting up against the back of the hosel, just like that. And from here now, we can just take a measurement of where we want to make our cut. So because this is going to be 35 1/4, we're going to cut it at 35 1/8. And just to double check this against my more official ruler, here we have it laid out. And as you can see here, we are just between 35 1/8 and 35 1/4. Okay, just like before, we're going to cut this the same way. Again, make sure the shaft is nice and level so that we get a nice straight up and down even cut. We're going to use, again, the tape just wrapped around it, and we put the marker on the outside of the tape so we can see where we're supposed to cut. And then again, just same method we used previously, get the blade set right there in the middle of the marker line, and then just nice, steady, even back and forth without pushing down on the actual shaft at all. Now this one looks really good, nice and even. We don't see any little burrs or anything, or any little splinters coming up. Oh, actually there's a couple right there, perfect. So if we do get anything like that, see right there, there's just a few faint little splintery pieces of that graphite fiber. All we're gonna do is just get our sandpaper, and we're just gonna go in the opposite direction of where the little fraying is. Just like that, until we get rid of those couple little fibers, just like that. So that's all it takes. Now, if you're interested in finding out what the swing weight will be on each of these clubs as they are right now for matching purposes, This is the easiest way to do that. Again, we don't need a swing weight scale. All we're going to be using is our 48-inch ruler, and you will need some sort of like kitchen scale. Again, I'm pretty sure you could find this at Home Depot, or at least on the Home Depot website. I've got an old grip here, so we're just going to slap this on here. It's the same weight as the grip we're going to be using. Make sure we have it fully on the club, just like that. So now we've got the grip, the shaft, the head all together. I've got my little vice pad on here just to balance the club. I've zeroed it out on the scale. We're going to weigh this club, and it comes out to 457 grams. Okay, once we know the weight, the next thing we need to find is the balance point. So all I'm going to do is actually just use my finger as the fulcrum here. I'm going to lay that right across there. I would say is right there. Little dot like that. And now all we have to do is measure the length from the very end of the grip here to this dot. And we want to measure to the very, very end of the back of the grip. So that should be at the 0 point. And then we're going to take our measurement, which looks like 27 and 27 3/4, I would say. We'll do that with all three of them, and then we can put this into an online swing weight calculator and figure out exactly where they're all falling right now, and if we need to make any adjustments, add any weight in order to get them all lined up evenly. Plugged everything into the online swing calculator, got all those measurements, then compared all of them using my actual swing weight scale. Everything was within or under 1 point of being where the swing weight scale said it was going to be. I got all three of them slightly heavier for whatever reason when I did the online calculator and taking those measurements versus when I used my swing weight scale, but they were all consistent, and that is the most important part, that they were all consistent. So at this point we can now start assembling these. One of them we're going to add a little bit of a tip weight to. I've shown you how to do that before. No change here. It's going to be the same process, so I won't get into the details there. But we've got our ferrules and we've got our little piece of sandpaper that I've already rolled up, and I'm just going to kind of twist these around in here just like that to rough up the insides. I've also got these brass shims that we're going to be using because these hosels are a little wider than the shaft. And we're going to do the exact same thing here. We're going to run the sandpaper just a little bit inside. I don't know that this really makes any difference, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. And then on the outside, we'll do the same thing. We'll just run the sandpaper over them real quick just to rough them up just a little bit more and give a better bonding surface. Now, I know the big question you're going to be asking, am I using epoxy that I bought at Home Depot? And the answer is no. I looked at all the epoxy. I've had this question before. I don't know if the exact chemical composition of the epoxies that you buy at the hardware store will work in a golf club application. Some of them definitely have enough tensile strength to be able to hold a golf club together. I'm not sure how they do with the sort of repeated impact and stresses that a golf club has. Also, pretty much all the epoxies that I found at Home Depot were all pretty fast setting, the kind of quick set under 5-minute epoxies, which would work for a single club, but if you're doing a set of wedges or a whole set of irons, it's not going to work. And because these are for George, I'm not going to risk it with some epoxy that I've never tested before. So we are, in this case, going to stick with a golf-specific epoxy, my GolfWorks Tour Set Plus that I use pretty much all the time. And we'll just go with that because it's just a safer bet. Okay, everything here will be the same as I've shown you many, many times. So we'll just do one of these. We'll use one of the ones that's going to have a little tip weight in it. So I've got the 50-degree here. We're going to just start off with a little epoxy down inside the hosel, just like that. Get our shaft, put a quick ring of epoxy right there for the ferrule. Grab the ferrule that we've had heating up, slide that on. I can use my little makeshift ferrule setter here just to get it on there just like that. We'll go ahead and put our little tip weight here on the end of it. Now we'll just put some epoxy on the end of the shaft just like that. Also get a little bit onto the tip weight. Slide one of our brass shims over the top of everything. Again, just a little bit of epoxy, just coating all of the legs real quick, just like that. Now we'll put them together. Slide them in together, just like that. You should hear a little sound of air escaping as it slides around that little tip weight. We're going to tap it down a few times. Just until you hear it bottom out. Rotate it around a few times to make sure the epoxy fully coats everything. Get our logos lined up the way we want them. And wipe off the excess epoxy from the outside of the hosel. Okay, just a couple things left to do. Next, we're going to clean up the ferrules just a little bit in case there's any sort of overhang here, because what we ideally want is a nice smooth joint here between the ferrule and the hosel. So what we're going to do first off, we're going to put this back in the vise. If we've got a shaft clamp like this, what I like to do is push it so that the ferrule is all the way up against the edge of the clamp like this. If you don't do it this way, then you're going to want to use a little bit of masking tape. But again, if you put it in the vise clamp like this and get it right up against the end, then you're not going to be able to accidentally hit this painted area. We'll go ahead now and we'll stick this in the vise. Again, just get it sitting just to the very edge of it so you can't get to any of that shaft. We can only get to the ferrule. And now all we're going to be doing is, depending on how much we need to remove, we're going to use two different sizes or two different grits of sandpaper. We'll have a medium grit. This is 120 grit here. And then we'll have more of a finishing one. This is 320 grit here. The lower grit, 120, we're going to use to remove material to get it down to the right size. Once it's basically to the right size and everything feels nice and flush, then we'll go back with the 320 and just clean up those sort of scratches and rough edges and just give it a little more, a little smoother finish to it before we get to the final step. So this is what this is going to look like. Now, depending on the material that you've got as far as the head or the finish, you may or may not want to put a little bit of tape around the hosel here. If you're dealing with a chrome plating on the club, then you probably don't have to worry because that is pretty robust and it's not going to come off. But if you have a brushed finish, you may want to put some masking tape around it. If you have any sort of painted finish here, you definitely want to cover that up, or at the very least make sure that you're very careful with your sandpaper and not sanding on the actual head itself or the hosel itself and just sticking with the ferrule. So what we're going to do at this point, I've got this cut essentially right to the diameter of the ferrule so that I know I'm not going to get up onto the hosel, and we're just going to go back and forth gently like a shoe shine right there at that joint, just like that. And after we do that for a few seconds, we'll rotate it 90 degrees and we'll repeat the process doing the same thing. Again, we don't want to hit the hosel, we just want to hit the ferrule, just like that. We'll rotate it again, 90 degrees, same thing. One more time. So now we've gone all 360 degrees around the ferrule. At this point, depending on how big the ferrule was compared to the hosel, you want to feel. If it feels like everything is nice and smooth like that, then we're done with this sandpaper. If it still feels like there's a lip there, you'll do the whole thing again. And basically just keep going in that 90-degree turn method until it gets nice and flush with the hosel. Once it's there, we're going to switch over again to the 320 sandpaper. Again, this is cut nice and narrow so we can keep it right against the ferrule and not get up on the shaft. And we're going to do the exact same thing. So a few back and forth like that, and then a 90-degree turn. Again, another 90-degree turn. One more 90-degree turn. Just like that. Now I'm just going to take a little paper towel And first I'm just gonna wipe this off real quick just to get any big loose bits of that plastic off there. You can see that all comes off like that. Just clean it up a little bit. Next step, and I always wear rubber glove for this, but we're just gonna get a little acetone. Again, you can find it at any Home Depot. Put it on either a texture-free paper towel or a lint-free cloth that again doesn't have any real texture to it. And we're just gonna get a little acetone there on the paper towel just like that. And then once we do that, I got a little too much on this one, we're just gonna take it and we're just gonna brush just like we do with any other golf club, brushing up and down in this case because we sanded going side to side. We were sanding going this way, so we want to brush going this way. And all we're going to do is just brush it, and this is going to get it smoothed out even more and bring that shine back to it, just like that. We'll let that dry off for a minute, and we'll have a nice, clean, polished, smooth ferrule, as you can see. The first thing we're going to do is just put on one layer of build-up tape that was requested, so we're just going to put that right to the end, just like that. We'll wrap this guy around first. Just like that. Next, we're going to take our strip of just standard double-sided tape, put that right over the top of this first one. Wrap that guy around same way. And now at this point, because we've been talking about doing this with just Home Depot equipment, I'm just going to be using plain old mineral spirits as opposed to grip solvent. Grip solvent is mineral spirits based, so it's essentially the same basic stuff. So all we're going to do here is pour a little of this over the tape just to break down that adhesive, and that'll give us enough time to slide the grip on. I've got a garbage can underneath to catch any of the drips. You could also use a paint tray or just a bucket of some kind, but then we'll be ready to go. So we'll just pour a little bit of this mineral spirits over the end of the grip. Just make sure we get it all coated just like that. And then get our grip lined up the way we want it. Put this over the end just like that and just get it started. I'm just using a little paper towel here so I don't have to touch the mineral spirits or touch them minimally. Make sure everything is lined up. Make sure our logos are the way we want them. That all looks good. Last thing to do, we'll just give it a quick wipe and take it out and tap it down. Just like that. Finished product here for George Bryan. We're going to ship these out. Again, we've double checked everything to make sure everything is right, and it all is, even though I was just using, again, all those basic tools. So all that is to say, if you are interested in building golf clubs or repairing golf clubs, don't feel like you have to have a ton of expensive or bulky equipment. You can do the same work, you can do the same quality of work with much simpler equipment. Hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you go down below, like, comment, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so you'll be alerted when I post new videos. Make sure you're following me on Instagram. If you're interested in a repair, in a custom build, in a fitting, all my contact information is down below. I'll see you next time. Bye.